Here's what nobody tells you about a narcissistic woman. She doesn't show you who she is on day one. She shows you who you want her to be. She studies you, your wounds, your dreams, the version of yourself you have always wanted someone to see. And she reflects it back to you like a mirror. And for a moment, maybe for months, it feels like you finally found her, the one. And then slowly things start to shift. The warmth starts to feel conditional. The admiration turns into criticism. The woman who used to make you feel chosen starts making you feel like a problem she has to manage. And you don't understand what happened because you can't point to a single moment where it all changed. It just did. So you try harder, you communicate better, you go to therapy, you read the books, you apologize for things you didn't even do. And still, nothing gets better. Any of that sounds familiar? I need you to stay with me for the next few minutes. What I'm about to walk you through are the 15 specific signs that the woman in your life may be a narcissist. Because you cannot navigate something you haven't named, and you cannot heal from something you don't understand. So hopefully this episode will help you understand what you are dealing with. So let's get into it. Welcome to the Narc Free Man Podcast. Welcome back to the Narc Free Man Podcast. I'm Philip Dugas, and this show exists for one reason: to give men the clarity, the tools, and the brotherhood they need to break free from a toxic relationship and never go back. So if you are new here, welcome. Hit that subscribe button right now because what I'm covering today is one of the most important videos I've ever made. And if you are a returning member of this community, you already know the deal. Before I walk you through these 15 signs, I need to give you some context, because if I don't, you're going to do what most men do when they stumble onto this kind of content for the first time. You are going to use it as a checklist. You are going to think, she did 3 of these things. Is she a narcissist? That's not how this works. Narcissism is not a checklist. It's a pattern. It's a consistent, repeated dynamic that plays out over time across multiple situations in ways that always seem to center around one person. And one bad mood is not narcissism. One selfish moment is not narcissism. Every person on this planet has moments when they are self-centered or difficult to deal with. That includes you and me. What makes narcissistic behavior different is the consistency of it, the lack of accountability, the inability to ever be wrong, the way every conversation somehow circles back to her pain, her needs, her perspective, or no matter what the conversation started about. The way you leave every difficult discussion feeling more confused than when you walked in. The way your confidence, your clarity, and your sense of self have slowly eroded over time without you being able to explain exactly why. Now that pattern, that's what we are diagnosing today. I also want to be clear about something. I am not a licensed therapist. I am not diagnosing anyone. What I am is a man who has studied this extensively, worked with hundreds of men going through exactly what you may be going through right now, and built a platform dedicated specifically to this issue. I speak from research, from experience, and from the stories of real men whose lives have been turned upside down by this dynamic. The clinical term is Narcissistic Personality Disorder, NPD, but many women who exhibit these behaviors have never been formally diagnosed and probably never will be, because one of the defining traits of a narcissist is that they don't believe anything is wrong with them. They don't seek help. They send their partners to therapy and watch those partners get told they need to communicate better, and then use that against them. Sound familiar? Okay, let's get into the 15 signs. I want you to watch each one carefully. I want you to think about your own relationship, not to build a case, but to build clarity, because clarity is where your power starts. Let me start with the one that catches most men off guard because it seems so minor at first. She cannot tolerate criticism, not even the gentle kind, not even the kind wrapped in love, delivered carefully at the right time. Any feedback, no matter how small, how kind, or how warranted, is received as an attack. Here's what that looks like in practice. You tell her that something she said hurt your feelings. Simple, direct, emotionally responsible. You use the right words, you didn't attack her. And somehow, within 60 seconds, you are now the one defending yourself. She's explaining to you why you are too sensitive, why she only said that because of what you did last Tuesday, why you always do this, why she can't say anything around you without it becoming a whole thing. You came to her with a wound and you left with two. This is one of the most disorienting patterns of narcissistic behavior because it punishes emotional honesty. Over time, you stop bringing things up. You stop expressing hurt. You stop communicating your needs. Not because you don't have them, but because experience has taught you that it's not safe to voice them. And here's the deeper layer. Her inability to receive feedback isn't just about ego, it's about identity. For a narcissist, criticism doesn't feel like input. It feels like a threat. Her self-image is fragile in a way that's completely invisible from the outside. Now, from the outside, she may look confident. She looks self-assured, but internally, there is no stable foundation, which means anything that challenges her perception of herself gets treated as an emergency. And you, the person who dared to point it out, become the enemy. The irony is she is often extremely critical of you, harshly, regularly, with no softening, no context, no consideration of your feelings. But when you ask for the same grace you give her, the dynamic flips instantly. And this next sign is one of the hardest for men to accept because it directly contradicts who she was in the beginning. That is, a narcissistic woman lacks genuine empathy. Not surface level empathy. She can take that exceptionally well. She can say all the right words. She can perform concern. She can show up for a friend's funeral and look devastated. Underneath the performance, there is no actual emotional attunement to another person's experience. Here's how you tell the difference between real empathy and performed empathy. Does she acknowledge your pain when it costs her something? Real empathy requires sacrifice. And sometimes it means sitting with someone else's discomfort, even when it's inconvenient, even when you are tired, even when you'd rather not deal with it. A genuinely empathetic person can do that. A narcissist cannot, not consistently, and not when it interferes with her own needs. What you'll experience instead is this. When you are hurting, and it doesn't threaten her or require her to take any responsibility, she can be warm, even nurturing. But the moment your pain is connected to something she did, or the moment comforting you requires more than she wants to give, the empathy evaporates. The conversation pivots. Your pain becomes an inconvenience, or worse, it becomes evidence of your weakness. I have talked to men who lost parents and described coming home in grief, and their partner made it about her, about how the death was affecting her schedule, about how she wasn't getting enough support while he was grieving, about how he was being distant and emotionally unavailable to her. When you are grieving and somehow end up comforting her, that's not a bad day. That's a pattern. And that pattern has a name. Pay attention to whether empathy is conditional or consistent. That's your signal. Sign number 3 is she love bombs you first, then devalues you later. Now this sign is going to hit the hardest because it explains the beginning. Love bombing is a term that gets thrown around a lot, but I want to make sure you understand exactly what it is, not just as a dating concept, but as a manipulation strategy. Love bombing is not someone being really into you. It is not someone being attentive, affectionate, or enthusiastic early in a relationship. Normal people do that. Love bombing is specifically the overwhelming, disproportionate flood of attention, affection, and idealization that a narcissist deploys to create rapid, intense, emotional attachment before you have had the chance to actually know her. Love bombing looks like this. You meet her, and within weeks, it feels like years. She makes you feel like the most important person in the world. She's texting you constantly. She's telling her friends about you. She's planning trips, talking about the future, mirroring your values and your dreams back to you in a way that feels almost uncanny. She seems to understand you in a way no one ever has. The connection feels electric, like fate, and this is the part nobody warns you about. It feels incredible. It is supposed to feel incredible. That's the point. Because what she's doing in this phase is creating a bond, a psychological hook that will keep you tethered long after the behavior shifts. She's building a version of herself in your mind that you will spend years trying to get back to. She's creating the ghost you'll chase. Then comes the devaluation, and it doesn't arrive as a dramatic shift. It arrives as small moments of coldness, sudden withdrawal, criticism that wasn't there before, mood swings that seem to come out of nowhere. The warmth becomes intermittent. And because she still gives you flashes of the woman you fell in love with, just enough, just often enough, you stay. You work, you try. You believe the good version is the real version, and the hard version is just a phase. It is not a phase. It is a cycle. And the cycle, love bomb, devalue, discard, repeat, is the operating system of a narcissistic relationship. Understanding this is not just important for leaving her, it's important for your healing, because so many men who have been through this still grieve the woman from the beginning, not understanding that she was never fully real. She was a presentation, a seduction, and your grief, as legitimate as it was, is for something that was never entirely yours to begin with. Now, sign number 4 is she makes everything about her. This one sounds simple, but the way it plays out is more insidious than most people realize. Every conversation, every crisis, every celebration somehow ends up centering her. If you get promoted at work, you come home excited. Within 5 minutes, she's talking about her own stress at work and how hard things have been for her lately. Your win didn't land. It got absorbed. Let's say your father gets sick. You are scared and you are processing it and you need support. But every time you bring it up, there's a pivot to her needs, to her feelings, the impact it's having on her life. And you end up managing her emotions about your emergency. Or, and this one is particularly sharp, she cannot simply be happy for you. She competes with your wins and she minimizes your achievements. She introduces subtle comparisons that leave you feeling smaller than you did before you told her. Now, this is different from a partner who has their own needs and their own stress. Everyone has those. This is a pattern of consistent narrative hijacking where no experience you have is allowed to exist independently of her experience, where her emotional world is always larger, always more urgent, and always more real than yours. Over time, this does something specific to a man. You stop sharing, you stop celebrating yourself. You start pre-editing your own joy before you bring it home, because you have learned the response will either be indifferent, repetitive, or somehow turn back on you. So you learn to be small, and you start to forget that being small was a survival strategy and mistake it for who you are. It isn't. That's what this dynamic does to good men. Sign number 5 is she gaslights you consistently. Gaslighting. You have heard the word, but I want to make sure you understand what it actually feels like from the inside, because when you are in it, you don't call it gaslighting. You call it going crazy. Gaslighting is the systematic distortion of your reality. It is a pattern of behavior designed consciously or not to make you doubt your own memory, your own perception, and your own sanity. Here's what it sounds like in practice. You remember a conversation clearly. She tells you it didn't happen, or that you misunderstood it, or that you are twisting her words, or that you always do this and take things out of context and make her the villain. You raise an issue she's raised herself before. She tells you she never said that, but you remember it vividly. She looks at you like you are unhinged for even suggesting it. She does something that hurts you. You bring it up. She explains to you calmly and convincingly that the reason you are hurt is actually because of your own insecurities, your own past, your own inability to handle a normal situation. And somehow you believe her, or at least you start to wonder if she's right. That's the mechanism. And it works because she delivers it with absolute conviction. Narcissists are not typically uncertain. They don't waver. They don't say, I might be wrong about this. They state their version of reality with the kind of confidence that makes you question your own. And here's the long-term damage no one talks about. After years of gaslighting, you lose the ability to trust yourself, not just in the relationship, in everything. You second-guess decisions at work. You apologize reflexively. You hold your opinions loosely, waiting for someone to tell you why you were wrong. You stop trusting your gut because your gut has been systematically dismantled. Rebuilding that trust in yourself is one of the most important parts of narcissistic abuse recovery. And it starts with recognizing that your perception was never the problem. Your instincts were right. You just weren't allowed to believe them. Sign number 6. She plays the victim masterfully. Nobody suffers like a narcissist. Nobody has been more wronged, more misunderstood, more mistreated by the world and by you specifically. This is the victim card, and a female narcissist plays it with skill that would be impressive if it weren't so destructive. Now, here's the key distinction between genuine victimhood and narcissistic victim playing. A genuine victim wants to heal. They want to process, to grow, and eventually move forward. A narcissist wants the status of victimhood without any of the accountability. The victim identity is a tool, not a wound she's trying to recover from. Now, in practice, this looks like whenever conflict arises, the script flips. You were the one who brought up the issue, but by the end of the conversation, she is the one who is hurt. Or you were expressing a pain, but somehow she is now the one who needs comfort. You were trying to hold a boundary, but now you are the abuser who made her cry. This is not accidental. It is a defense mechanism so automatic in narcissists that they may not even be aware they are doing it. The moment accountability approaches, the moment consequences arrive, the victimhood narrative deploys. And it works on good men specifically because good men don't want to hurt people. Good men feel guilt. Good men back down when they see pain. She knows this and she uses it. The other layer of this sign is what I call the permanent ledger of grievances. A narcissistic woman keeps a running record of every real and perceived slight. She never truly forgives anything. She may say she does, but every argument eventually reaches back into history, pulling out incidents from months or years ago, using them as evidence that you have always been this way. You have always been the problem. You have always been the one who hurt her. Meanwhile, when you try to bring up something that actually happened, something she did that hurt you, you are told you are being petty. You can't let things go. You are dwelling on the past. One person's history is ammunition. The other's is weakness. That asymmetry is worth marking. All right, sign number 7 is she has an intense need for control. Control is the architecture of a narcissistic relationship. Everything else, the manipulation, the gaslighting, the emotional withdrawal, is in service of this one core need. She needs to control the environment, the narrative, the perception other people have of her, and above all, she needs to control you. This control doesn't always look aggressive. In fact, with covert narcissist, which is the most common type in women, it is often so subtle you don't even register it as control until you try to break free of it. It might look like managing your social calendar. Slowly over time, creating friction around your friendships until it's just easier not to see them. Not forbidding you, she rarely forbids. She makes it uncomfortable enough that you self-select out. It might look like financial control, knowing where every dollar goes, questioning your spending in ways that slowly make you feel like a child asking for an allowance. It might look like controlling the narrative around your relationship, carefully managing what she tells her friends and family about you, so that if the relationship ever ends, the story is already written. You are already the villain in everyone's mind before you have done a single thing wrong. Or it might look like emotional control, using her mood as a thermostat for the entire household. When she's good, everyone is good. When she's in a dark place, the whole house holds its breath and walks on eggshells. You and possibly your children are constantly reading the temperature of her, adjusting and accommodating, trying to manage her emotional state so that the environment stays livable. That's not a healthy relationship. That's a hostage negotiation you have been running every day without realizing it. Sign number 8 is she lacks accountability. Now, I want you to think back over your entire relationship and ask yourself one honest question. Has she ever genuinely apologized? Not the, I'm sorry you feel that way, non-apology. Not the apology that immediately pivots to explaining why you made her do it, but a clean, clear, owned apology. Like, I was wrong. That was my fault. I'm sorry. Kind of apology. Now, for most men in toxic relationships with narcissistic women, the answer is no. Or it's an extremely rare yes that was quickly followed by the behavior recurring. This is one of the most telling signs of a narcissistic personality disorder: the complete inability to own, wrongdoing in a real, lasting way. And here's why. Accountability requires accepting that you caused harm, that you were imperfect, that you fell short. For someone with a stable, grounded sense of self, that's uncomfortable but survivable. For a female narcissist whose entire identity is built on a carefully constructed self-image of being right, good, and beyond reproach, accountability feels like annihilation. To admit she was wrong would threaten the foundation of who she believes herself to be. So instead, what you get is deflection. I only did that because you fill in the blank, minimization. You are making such a big deal out of nothing. That's reversal. Or she'll say, how dare you accuse me of that? Or the complete rewrite where the version of events she presents to you and to everyone else has been edited so thoroughly that you can barely recognize the situation you actually lived through. Over time, this does something devastating. You absorb her accountability. You become the designated wrong person in the relationship. Again, every conflict ends with you apologizing, not because you were wrong, but because someone has to apologize for the relationship to function, and she's not going to do it. You have been carrying her debt. That's what this sign represents. Sign number 9 is she uses silent treatment as a weapon. The silent treatment feels like a small thing from the outside. Oh, she's just being moody. But if you lived inside it, if you know what it's like to walk around your own house not knowing what you did, replaying every moment of the last 24 hours, watching her look through you like you don't exist, you know it is anything but small. The silent treatment as a weapon is different from someone who genuinely needs space to process. Difference is purpose. When someone needs space, they say so. They set a boundary and return when they are ready. When a narcissist goes silent, the silence is punitive. It is designed to make you anxious, to make you feel the withdrawal of her presence, to trigger your attachment instincts into overdrive so that you come back to her, apologize, and reestablish the connection on her terms. It is emotional leverage, plain and simple. And here's what makes it particularly insidious. It works, especially on men who grew up in environments where love was conditional, where affection was something you had to earn, where cold silence meant you were in trouble. The silent treatment bypasses the adult brain and reaches directly into the wounds of the child. It doesn't feel like manipulation. It feels like abandonment. So you chase her. You apologize for things you are not sure you even did. You work to restore the warmth, and when it comes back, when she's warm again, when she smiles at you again, the relief is so intense that it functions almost like a reward, and that reward reinforces the cycle. Now, the clinical term for this is intermittent reinforcement. Psychologists have known for decades that unpredictable rewards create stronger behavioral conditioning than consistent ones. It's the same mechanism behind slot machines. And behind this relationship, you are not addicted to her. You are conditioned to her. The difference matters because one implies weakness and the other implies you responded normally to an abnormal situation. Sign number 10 is she is envious even of you. Now, this one surprises men because the image we have of a narcissist is someone supremely confident, someone who looks down on others. And in many ways, that image is accurate. But underneath the superiority is a constant burning envy that contradicts the confidence entirely. A narcissistic woman is envious, and she is not always envious of strangers or celebrities. She is often envious of you, of your friendships, your career momentum, your confidence when you walk into a room, your relationship with your children, your peace when she's in chaos. And because she cannot openly admit to envy, because that would crack the image, it comes out sideways as criticism, as minimization, as the subtle undermining of your achievements, as the comment that lands just wrong enough to knock you off balance before something important, as the comparison to other men that makes you feel inadequate at the exact moment you were starting to feel good. She may not even know she's doing it. Narcissistic envy is often operating entirely below the level of conscious intent. She genuinely believes she's just giving feedback. She genuinely believes she's just being honest. But the consistent pattern that your confidence is always targeted, your wins always come with a shadow, is worth examining. Healthy partners celebrate you. They want you to win. Your success is not a threat to them. It's a source of pride. If you have been in a toxic relationship where your growth was consistently met with resistance, skepticism, or sabotage, that is not love. That is competition. All right, sign number 11 is she has two faces, public and private. If you have ever watched her work a room, she's charming, warm, engaging, the person everyone loves, and then sat silently in the car on the way home while she unloaded on you about something stupid. This sign. The two-faced dynamic is one of the most psychologically disorienting aspects being with a female narcissist, because it creates a world where no one outside the relationship believes you. To the outside world, she is extraordinary. She is kind, thoughtful, funny. She volunteers. She supports her friends. She is the first person to show up for everyone else. People adore her. And when you try to describe what happens behind closed doors, people look at you sideways. Really? Her? She seems so nice. And that gap between who she is in public and who she is with you in private is not accidental. The public persona is carefully curated. It is reputation management. It is the creation of a social insurance policy so that if things ever go sideways in the relationship, her character is already established in everyone's mind, and yours may already be undermined by things she said over time. Inside the house, the mask comes off. The criticism is sharper. The contempt is clearer. The person who was patient and gracious all evening with strangers has zero patience for you. The warmth that was available for everyone else is locked behind conditions she never quite communicates clearly. And this disparity is not just isolating, it is actively crazy making, because your lived experience of this person contradicts the world's experience, which makes it very hard to reach out for help, very hard to leave, and very easy for her to control the narrative if you ever do. All right, sign number 12 is she uses your vulnerabilities against you. In the beginning, in the love bombing phase, she asked you all the right questions. She wanted to know about your childhood, your fears, the ways you had been hurt before, the parts of yourself you had never told anyone. And you told her because she felt safe, because she felt like home. Here's the hard truth. She was building a file, not consciously in most cases, but the information you shared in those early intimate conversations, your insecurities, your wounds, your deepest fears, will eventually be used against you. Probably during arguments, probably at the moment when you are most vulnerable. The thing you told her about your mother in year 1 becomes ammunition in year 3. The insecurity you confided about your body, your career, your self-worth, that gets weaponized during conflict in a way that is so targeted, it takes your breath away. She knows exactly where to hit. And the most destabilizing part of this is that she learned where to hit because you trusted her. This is why the betrayal that men feel after toxic relationships often cuts deeper than other breakups. It's not just the loss of the relationship, it's the violation of the intimacy that created it. The things you shared in vulnerability were used as weapons, and that rewrites the entire history of what you thought was safety. So I want to say something clear here. The fact that she used your vulnerabilities against you says nothing about whether you should have been vulnerable. Vulnerability in a relationship is not weakness. It is not being naive. It is the appropriate, healthy response to someone who was presenting as trustworthy. Look, you did the right thing. She did not. Your capacity for openness is not the problem. Her willingness to exploit it is. All right, sign number 13 is she engages in triangulation. Triangulation is a manipulation tactic that introduces a third party into the dynamic to create insecurity, jealousy, or competition, and therefore keep you off balance and focused on her. It can be another man, an ex she mentions just a little too frequently with just a little too much warmth, a male friend who she defends too strongly when you raise concerns, or a coworker she describes in ways that feel designed to make you feel inadequate by comparison. But triangulation isn't always about infidelity or jealousy. Sometimes the third point of the triangle is a family member, a friend, even her children from a previous relationship. The purpose is the same: to introduce a third party whose opinion, needs, or approval matters more than yours, or who represents an alternative source of validation that she can wave in front of you. Now, in family court situations, which many of the men I work with are navigating, this often takes the form of parental alienation, using the children as the third point of the triangle, creating a dynamic where the children's loyalty and love are weaponized, where you are sometimes overtly positioned as the lesser parent, the one who should be worried, the one who needs to compete for their own children's affection. That is one of the most vicious applications of this tactic, and it requires its own dedicated conversation, which I'll be covering in a future episode. But recognize it here as part of the same pattern, the deliberate introduction of a third party to destabilize you, to keep you chasing and maintain her position at the center of the dynamic. Healthy partners don't make you feel like you are competing. They don't make you feel like your relationship is contingent on performance. They don't reference other people in ways designed to trigger your insecurity. If you feel like you are constantly auditioning for your own relationship, triangulation may be at play. Okay, sign number 14, she idealizes and discards. The idealization and discard cycle is the full arc of the narcissistic relationship, and it's worth understanding not just as a pattern within a relationship, but as what can happen at the end of one. The idealization phase, which we discussed in the love bombing sign, is the beginning. You are everything, perfect, the one she's been waiting for. She will tell the world about you, integrate you into her life rapidly, treat you like the most important person who has ever existed in her world. And then, eventually, comes the discard. And the discard rarely looks like what you'd expect. It rarely comes with a clear conversation, an honest explanation, or any closure that makes sense. What it looks like is often this: she has found a new source of supply, a new person who can give her the attention and validation she needs, and suddenly You are not just no longer the priority, you are the problem, the obstacle, the villain in the story she is now telling her new person about why her last relationship ended. The man who was everything is now nothing, worse than nothing. He is the cautionary tale. This is devastating in a way that is very hard to explain to people who haven't lived it, because the person who adored you is now discarding you and doing so without the grief you would expect if the relationship was real, with an ease that feels almost inhuman. That ease, that's the tell. Healthy people grieve the end of real relationships, and they struggle with transitions. They feel the weight of history. A narcissist can move on with speed and completeness that leaves her former partner shattered, not just by the loss, but by what that speed implies about whether any of it was real. If it was real to you, that's what matters for your healing. The depth of your feeling was never the problem. What happened is that your genuine investment was met with the performance, and the performance ended when the audience changed. Okay, sign number 15 is she leaves you feeling like a shell of who you were. This is the final sign, and it's the one that matters most. Not because it's the most dramatic, but because it is the cumulative result of everything I have described in the previous 14 signs. After months or years with a narcissistic woman, you don't look like yourself anymore. Not on the outside, maybe, but inside in the ways that matter. You are a diminished version of the man you used to be. You are less confident, less certain, less willing to take up space or express an opinion. You second guess yourself constantly. You walk into rooms wondering what you are doing wrong before you have even done anything. You apologize reflexively to strangers, to colleagues, to your children, because you have been trained to believe that your presence is inherently problematic. You have lost friendships. Maybe you have pulled back from your own family. Maybe you have watched your professional life suffer because you couldn't bring your full self to work when everything at home was so destabilizing. Maybe your health has taken a hit. And the part that breaks my heart the most really is many of the men I speak with can't even remember who they were before her. I've heard them say things like, I used to be so confident. I used to love my work. I used to have so many friends. They can see the before clearly, and they just can't imagine how to get back there. I want to say this directly to you right now. You can get back. The man you were before she got to him is not gone. He is waiting for you to stop asking what's wrong with you and start understanding what happened to you. The loss of yourself is not proof that you were weak. It is proof that you endured something that would diminish anyone. That would diminish me. That has diminished strong, capable, remarkable men all over the world who, just like you, entered a relationship in good faith and found themselves slowly consumed by it. That ends now, or it starts ending now. Either way, you are in the right place. Okay, 15 signs. Let me give you a quick anchor, not to check boxes, but to remember the pattern. She can't tolerate criticism. She lacks genuine empathy. She love bombs first, then devalues. She makes everything about her. She gaslights you consistently. She plays the victim masterfully. She has an intense need for control. She lacks accountability. She weaponizes silence. She's envious of you. She has two faces, one for the world, one behind closed doors. She uses your vulnerabilities against you. She triangulates to keep you insecure. She idealizes and discards, and over time, she leaves you feeling like a shell of who you used to be. Now, I need to be honest with you about something. Reading a list of 15 signs and recognizing your relationship in it is not the same as knowing what to do next. Clarity is the beginning, not the destination. Some of you watching this are still in the relationship. Some of you are in the middle of a divorce, but some of you got out months ago but can't understand why you feel stuck. Or some of you are fighting for your kids and navigating a family court system that doesn't always see what you see. All of those situations require different strategies, and I cover all of them on this podcast. So if you haven't already, go back and watch my episodes on gray rocking, how to go no contact, co-parenting with a narcissist, and rebuilding your identity after narcissistic abuse. Every one of those videos was made for exactly where you might be right now. And if you are at the point where you need more than videos, if you need someone in your corner, a real strategy built around your specific situation, someone who has navigated this professionally, my VIP coaching program is open. The link is in the description below. And the intake form takes only about 5 minutes. And the conversation we have after that could change the entire trajectory of what comes next for you. Now, I also want to mention something new I'm working on. We are building the Narc-Free Brotherhood. It's a group coaching community for men who want tactical support, real accountability, and the kind of fellowship that most of us don't have anywhere else right now. Men who have been through this understand each other in a way that's hard to find. So if you want to be part of the founding group, that information is in the description as well. Now, before I go, I want to leave you with this. You came to this video looking for information, but I suspect what you are really looking for is permission. Permission to trust what you have been feeling. Permission to stop blaming yourself for a dynamic you didn't create. Permission to acknowledge that what you have been living through is real, that it has a name, and that you deserve to live differently. You have that permission. You were not too sensitive. You were not too needy. You were not too much or not enough. You were a good man in a situation designed to make good men doubt themselves. And the fact that you are here asking questions, seeking clarity, refusing to stay stuck says everything about who you are. Stay clear, stay grounded, and above all, stay narc free. And I'll see you in the next episode.